The 9 Days: Why Jews Refuse to Forget. The 9 days began today, Wednesday, July 15th, 2026, starting at sundown on Tuesday evening, July 14th, as Jewish days begin at sunset. They run through the morning of Tisha B'Av, the ninth of Av, which falls on July 22nd through 23rd, 2026, from sundown Wednesday to nightfall Thursday. Most cultures have a season of mourning. Americans have Memorial Day. Christians have Good Friday. Nations have anniversaries of attacks, wars, assassinations, and tragedies. Families have yahrzeits, even if they do not call them that. A date comes around, the air changes, and suddenly history is not history anymore. It is sitting at the kitchen table asking why nobody saved it a seat. Judaism has that too. We call this period the 9 Days. Yes, it sounds like a Liam Neeson movie where he has to extract a Torah scroll from Rome before sunset. It is not that. The 9 days are the first 9 days of the Hebrew month of Av, leading up to Tisha B'Av, the ninth of Av. It is the saddest day on the Jewish calendar. It commemorates the destruction of both ancient Jewish temples in Jerusalem, the first temple by the Babylonians and the second temple by the Romans. Over time, other Jewish catastrophes became connected to this same period too: exile, persecution, expulsion, loss. In other words, Judaism looked at history and said, let's not pretend this didn't happen. Very Jewish. For anyone who did not grow up with this, the temple was not a fancy synagogue with a gift shop. It was the beating heart of Jewish sovereignty, worship, and peoplehood in one place. Jerusalem was not symbolic in the vague way people put inspirational quotes over sunsets. It was real, it was central, it was home. When the temple was destroyed, the Jewish people did not simply lose a place of worship. We lost sovereignty, we lost our center. We were scattered across empires that often tolerated us just long enough to tax us, blame us, exile us, or kill us, and yet we remembered. That is the thing about Jews. We are terrible at forgetting, absolutely awful. Olympic level bad at it. Other civilizations built monuments. We built memory into the calendar. During the 9 days, many observant Jews avoid meat and wine, do not listen to live music, avoid unnecessary celebrations, postpone major purchases, and generally lower the emotional volume of life. On Tisha B'Av itself, traditional Jews fast, sit low to the ground, read the Book of Lamentations, and mourn. For non-religious Jews, this may sound foreign. Maybe you grew up with bagels, sarcasm, and a grandmother who treated just one more bite as a moral imperative. Maybe Judaism for you was Hanukkah candles, Passover food trauma, and a vague but powerful suspicion that every family gathering requires at least 3 competing opinions on everything. But the 9 days still belong to you. Memory does not require a yarmulke. Because Judaism is not only theology, it is memory, it is peoplehood, it is civilization. You do not have to be religious to understand grief. You do not have to keep kosher to understand exile. You do not have to pray every day to understand what it means for a people to carry a wound for 2,000 years and still teach their children to sing. That is the genius of Jewish mourning. It does not trap us in the past, it trains us to understand the present. The Jewish calendar refuses cheap happiness. It says joy is real, but so is loss. Celebration matters, but so does grief. Dancing at a wedding is holy. Sitting on the floor and crying over Jerusalem is holy too. A healthy people knows how to do both. And maybe that is why the 9 days feel especially relevant now. We live in a world that pressures Jews to shrink our memory down to something more convenient. Forget the temples, forget Jerusalem, forget exile, forget pogroms, forget expulsions. Forget that Jewish history did not begin in 1948, CNN, or someone's freshman seminar on colonialism. Forget everything, they tell us, and then let them explain who we are. No thanks. Forgetting is not neutral. It is how other people get to write your story for you. We remember that Jerusalem is not a metaphor. We remember that Jewish longing for Zion is older than most nations currently lecturing us about nationalism. We remember that the Jewish people did not survive because the world was kind. We survived because memory became muscle. The 9 days are not about being gloomy for the sake of it. They are not Jewish emotional CrossFit with a rabbi holding a stopwatch. They are about refusing amnesia. They are about saying, something was broken here. Something sacred was lost, a people was scattered, a home was burned, and pretending otherwise is not enlightenment, it is erasure. But Judaism never ends in ashes. That is the part people miss. We mourn Jerusalem because we still believe in rebuilding. We fast because we still believe hunger can teach us. We sit low because humility is sometimes the only honest posture before history. We read Lamentations because grief needs words, and Jews, thank God, are never short on words. The 9 days ask us to pause before we rush back into noise. They ask non Jews to understand that Jewish memory is not stubbornness, it is survival. They ask secular Jews to understand that even if you do not observe the rituals, the story is still yours. And they ask all of us to remember this. A people that mourns its destroyed home for 2,000 years has not moved on. It has stayed faithful. That is not weakness. That is love with a very long memory. If you enjoy my writing, support me by buying my book, Screaming into the Void, available on paperback or Kindle on Amazon.com.